If you've tried animating characters before, but they end up looking like a doll that a kid is using to play a game of house, then you're probably missing one of these 10 tiny details that character animators rely on to make great character animation. Once I started adding these to my own work, I saw a huge difference in the best way possible. And I want to share that with you today, and I'm going to be breaking these into 3 categories that I have found these 10 tiny details fall into. They are animation principles, facial details, and body mechanics. Before we jump in, you need to know you do not need to memorize all of these 10. In fact, you only have to pick a couple to start with. You can even start with one. In fact, there is one that I've included in this list that as soon as I started using it, I saw a huge difference. And what I'm so excited about this one, it's in the facial details, just so you know where to listen into. So it is the one that was the easiest to add. Before I can get into facial details, I need to start with the animation principles, since they are the basics and bare bones and building blocks of animation. I know you've studied animation principles by this point, but I don't know if you've realized that when it comes to character animation specifically, you have to rethink how you think about the animation principles. And there's 2 animation principles that you need to pay attention to when you are doing character animation to make them feel that realness. And these 2 principles are anticipation and overlapping action. Again, you're going to think of them probably a little differently than you've been told to think about them. Anticipation is usually how we think of, well, what are we trying to build up to? It's the same idea with the character animation, but you're using anticipation in this way. You're going to want to use anticipation to build your character's action up so that the audience feels the impact of whatever action they are about to take. So if your character, I feel like this is the classic example, but if your character is going to punch somebody, I guess you're doing an action scene, but if your character is going to punch somebody, they're going to not just immediately extend an arm, they're going to have the wind up, which is the anticipation. They're going to be drawing their arm back and then punching forward. If you don't include that little bit of anticipation, then the impact of the action is going to be lost on your viewer, and your animation, your character is not going to feel like they actually deserve the payoff of the punch. Now, for overlapping action, I don't think there is such a different definition, but it's just a reminder that you really do need to think about what is going on, what is the secondary detail that is moving as your character moves and is going to have the delayed reaction. In reality, we do not all move at the same pace. Our clothes don't move at the same pace, our accessories don't move at the same place. I wish I could remember where I saw this, but I do know that I was watching an anime with my husband, and I remember thinking that this is a very close-up shot of this woman's face, but I can still tell that she is moving because her hair is moving, and it makes her feel real and not stationary. That's the kind of overlapping action that you're going to want to pay attention to when you're doing character animation, because that tiny little detail told me everything about the scene. An overlapping action will appear again in a different way later on in the body mechanics section, because animation principles, they are those building blocks. So just because I'm saying these now does not mean they don't apply later on to the other tiny details that the character animators use. But we're going to move on to the thing that gets character animators and just animators in general really excited. But it's in this excitement that you can forget to add these tiny details that, again, I feel like I'm repeating this phrase, that just bring your character to life. And these are the facial details. In this part, 4 out of the 5 details are all about focus and character expression. This is the section where I told you I would tell you about which one of these small, tiny details you should definitely start using just to add so much to your character animation. And that is the exact detail that I am going to tell you about right now. Start adding blinks. People blink all the time. It is unnatural for us as human beings to just stare at somebody unending and like this. It gets pretty awkward pretty fast, and that makes me feel almost unhinged or psychotic. So if you're going for that look for your character, then you've nailed it. But most of us, you're going to want your characters to blink. You don't want to do it every second, because if you get it into a pattern, it's going to look mechanical and you're going to run into that same issue of your character feeling flat. I also find that if you match it to what you're trying to do, for instance, if your character is turning, add a blink somewhere in there. If your character is shifting their focus, add a blink there. If your character is just staring for too long and you're watching your clip and you can feel like there's something weird with the expression and you're just starting to feel awkward, add a blink somewhere in there. So you're almost thinking about where you can add those blinks that will give it the most impact and feel the most real. You can also even think about it in a very logical sense. When would the eyes become dry? And when would air be hitting the eyes that would make you want to blink? And now I'm going to move on to the next one, which is also focusing on the eyes, because the eyes tell so much about your story, your character, and the animation in general. So this next one, instead of having your character stare straight ahead, you're going to want them to shift their focus. What does that mean? When we are looking around at objects, or we're hearing a voice to our left, we're going to shift our focus and we're going to turn to that person or that object and follow it with our eyes. If we see a bird, our eyes are not just going to look up and stare at the bird, because birds, when they're flying, don't just stay above us. Our eyes are going to turn and look with it. That's called shifting the focus, shifting your eyes to follow the movement. The head doesn't necessarily turn, but the eyes, they will move. And I almost forgot to bring up the other reason why you want to shift your character's focus, you want to change where their eyes are looking, is that you can also share with your viewer what they're supposed to be looking at. It's almost like a small storytelling tool that you can subtly use. Adding blinks and shifting your focus are very, very small details that add a ton to your character animation. But what about facial expressions? Because I know that's a big one. Whenever you're making your character and animating them in a story, you of course have your big expressions planned out. But did you know that you also need to add smaller expressions in between the big ones? Because in between these big expressions, these big story markers, you are going to have them constantly reacting to what is going on around them. You rarely animate characters in a void. Usually there is some background behind them. Usually there is another character that they're interacting with. It might even just be an object that they're holding. And you can have an entire inner dialogue playing across your character's face, which is why you would almost call these micro expressions. Maybe it's an eyebrow raise here, a slight closing of the lips in concentration. There's a whole bunch of little micro expressions that you can add that would tell your character's inner world. And if you start doing this, it also ends up making your character look like they're not just waiting for their turn in a play. Next is reaction timing. This is almost building on all of these skills, from blinks to shifting focus to constantly reacting. And then you have reaction timing. Reaction timing is whether your character is going to react before or after the event. Let's say somebody is speaking to your character. Is your character going to wait their turn? Or are they going to start opening their mouth before the other person has even finished? Or are they going to keep their mouth closed until they know the other person is finished? So it's figuring out your timing reaction. Now we're up to the fifth and final part in facial details, and that is this is one that I did not expect to have the most to say about, but it is lip syncing. Some of you might not do lip syncing, and I don't blame you, because it is very, very difficult. In case you don't know, you are matching the mouth movements of your character to what the dialogue is. Some get very, very into it, and if you go for details, then it gets very complicated. And there is the lie that if you simply copy certain drawings of how mouths are supposed to open and close, that you will get what you want and have your characters match up. But what happens if you have a character that does not have teeth? And it would be weird to add teeth all of a sudden to this character. I ran into this issue with a character that I made for work. And if you're new here wondering why I'm not showing a clip of that character when I share a ton of animations, that's because I don't own this character. All the animations you see on my channel that I share, I've actually created on my off time or in my personal time. So while this character is a good example because I never attempted lip syncing on my own time, I did do this for work, and I'm not going to steal it. But the point I'm making is there's a very simple trick that you can use if you want to add lip sync. Have your dialogue in the timeline lined up with where you're going to be animating your lip sync for your character. And then as you try to figure out how to shape the mouth, you want to mouth the word using your own mouth. It might sound strange, but if you mouth the word, you want to pay attention to how much your mouth is opening on a certain letter, if it's closing, if it's turning into more of a frown or a smile. And then you can copy that into what your character is going to look like when they're matching up to that piece of dialogue and how their mouth is going to look like when they're saying the word. I know I deep dived on lip syncing. It's very hard. I figured it out, and I wanted to share it with you in case it helps you in your animations. And these were just the details that you can add to your face. Your character also has a whole body. And this is the last place where you can sell how real your character is going to look. So body mechanics, and this first one is going to bridge between what is body mechanics and what is character expression. You can start adding head tilts. Head tilts are just like they sound. Your character is going to tilt their head to match their emotion expression and what they're trying to communicate for the story. It's a great way to show if your character is curious, interested. For instance, they can tilt their head forward. Or if maybe they're embarrassed, they're looking down, or they feel like they've done something wrong. There's a whole bunch of ways to add a head tilt into your body mechanics to just give your character the little bit of detail that you need. Now on to something that every beginner animator gets wrong and needs to fix it. And this is something that I definitely did, and I can't believe that I did this. I do not remember which YouTuber taught this to me, but whoever it was, thank you so much. My animation would not have improved without you. Do not mirror. Do not use mirroring in your characters. Now, what is mirroring? Mirroring is the act of animating your arms, legs at the same height. For instance, if your character is going to do a shrug, well, you can see right now, my hands, when I put myself into this shrug pose, they are not even. This hand is lower than this hand. Beginner animators will animate their hands right at the same light height, and that makes characters stiff. Most people, when we stand, our weight shifts. So when we stand, it's very rare that we will stand straight up. Most of the times, we're putting more of our weight on one foot than the other. That means that our whole body shifts to place the weight on that foot. Or if we're leaning against something. And a good rule of thumb for any character animator is think about the general way you move and react in real situations. Imagine you're in a grocery store. Would you stare straight ahead, expressionless, as you walk through the store, or would your eyes start darting this way and that, trying to find the food on your list? Would you be hurrying because you're hungry or you need to get home? Would you smile if you found a bargain, or would you end up wincing if you saw prices were rising again? And the goal in character animation isn't to add every detail. It's just about adding enough detail to add story and to clue your viewer into your character's inner world. So character animation really comes down to adding just enough emotion story without overwhelming the shot. If you want to go a little deeper and actually fix some of the stiffness you're seeing in your characters, I recommend you check out this video of why animation basics matter more than people think. It'll show you how to use basics to level up your skills way faster than you think.